Smile.
That's a good way to start. Hello, everyone. Interesting. Oh, here it is. Now we are going live.
Found the button. Okay.
Okay, now I can see the LinkedIn, so I'm going to not have double voice. I will close the LinkedIn, so we concentrate here. Ah, we see
Yep.
the numbers here. There are millions already here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Zero. No, anyway, we are going to record that, so it's no problem.
Let me
Live
see.
47 seconds, nobody's here. Oh,
Well, let's make certain that
okay, so
is it worth double checking that the link works correctly in another window?
yeah, what works. I checked it in the LinkedIn. We are there,
Okay.
so it's working properly. Let me check again. One second. We are live. Just checking here the event if it's all right because we cannot see people coming. So that's yeah, we are here. 49 people. Oh, we can see here in the LinkedIn, but we cannot see by ourselves. Interesting. All right, we
Okay,
are
so
learning.
here we are having these private conversations with 49 people so far. Fine, I think we'll
Hi,
start.
Diana. Hi, Jorgen. LinkedIn. Hello, Mike. Mike, Diana. Hello, everyone. We don't know how many people because we cannot visualize that in the system, but in the LinkedIn, you could see that. So that's great. I'll close the LinkedIn for now. So, and here we see one person. Interesting that how it works. We'll find the way later. Doesn't matter. Let's start. So, everyone, thank you very much for coming. Okay, for this first live event in DCXO. I am Ricardo Salzguco. I am the co-founder of the ECXO, the European Customer Experience Organization, and also the company that calls eGlobalis. Okay, with many others ambassadors that helped us to co-found that. Today we are talking about a very important topic for us, which is customer surveys are dead, and learn how AI will replace them. Yes, and that's I think is a progress of things, and that's great because I think we are all tired of normal surveys asking us questions. So let me read for you because I don't remember old words about what we are and where we are going. Welcome to the European Customer Experience Organization, the CX Professional Business Network, one organization dedicated to educating EMEA corporate professionals and beyond about CX and related topics. In 2024, we will be hosting our inaugural physical event and launching our educational program. We invite you all to join our open access CX community, which remains open until July next year. Everybody that comes before that will be free there all their lives. The newcomers will then be charged. Let's talk a bit about how we are going to manage this webinar with this live with Maurice before I introduce him. So you ask the questions, and I'm going to um, interrupt sometimes Maurice to ask the questions that you asked us. Okay, we have some also questions that I have curiosity to know. And let me introduce you now to Maurice. Okay, Maurice Fields Gerard is the former vice. I hope I pronounced that properly.
Close, close.
How you pronounce that?
Fitzgerald.
Is the
Remember,
former VP?
like my
What?
great aunt Ella and F. Scott Fitzgerald and John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
Maurice is the former VP of Customer Experience for HP, a 4 billion in revenue software business, and probably you know them, and was also the VP of Strategy and Customer Experience as the Chief of Staff for HP MEA. He's an author. He wrote 3 books, which I read 3 books, and I strongly believe that you should take a look. It's a very good books about customer experience strategy. And he also wrote about NPS. Okay, but we can discuss about NPS in other opportunity with him, because it's very contentious subject. Today, Maurice is the editor-in-chief of content at OCX Cognition, a leader in emerging customer experience AI space. So without further ado, okay, I'm going to be managing this, but Maurice will lead the presentation and I will disappear in 1 second. So have a lovely experience with Maurice. Maurice, the show's yours.
Thanks for the intro, Ricardo. Yeah, Fitzgerald is a Norman name. The Normans invaded Ireland in 1169, and their head was Maurice, fils de Gerald, son of Gerald, and the name just continued from there. I've noticed that Ricardo likes in the ECXO slide format, which I'm using today, the people use evening and nighttime pictures of European cities. So I live near Geneva, and this is, well, center of Geneva in as the sun is starting to set. One of our daughters took that picture. So yes, this session is not all about me, but here's a few words about me to get started anyway. I've spent my life in the Northern Hemisphere, in low tech and in high tech. The diagram on the right shows white lines where I went with my family. I was born in Cork in the extreme south of Ireland. When I was 9, my parents, who were academics, medical academics, decided they could develop their careers more quickly in the US. We moved first to Seattle, to St. Louis for 2 years, then to Seattle for 2 years before returning to Galway in the west of Ireland, where I went to engineering school. I'm an industrial engineer by trade. When I graduated, I had a mentor, and the mentor said, if you want to develop your career really quickly, join a high growth company, because that's where all the promotion opportunities are and the least pressure is on cost and so on. And guess what? At that time, the parent company of the Wrangler jeans brand was that. High tech wasn't a thing at the time. Hey, this was 1977. And I still had a US green card. And they sent me to start my work. My first 6 months were in Georgia and North Carolina in manufacturing plants. That's when I discovered that not all of the United States was exactly like Seattle. And, Sida, who's online, wrote to me earlier today, and I saw that she swapped even Palo Alto weather for Berlin weather. I can't quite understand that, but that's choices we all make. It's not the same. So I worked with Wrangler in 6 countries. I quickly became a specialist in logistics and warehouse automation. This was after moving from Ireland to France. I spent 2 years in manufacturing, then 2 years in the distribution logistics. We'll come back to that for a particular story. Then at one point, when I was doing a distribution center project up in Scotland, I saw an ad in the Sunday Times that described exactly the job that I was doing, but for Digital Equipment Corporation in Nijmegen in the Netherlands. Ja, ik spreek Nederlands, redelijk goed Nederlands, maar het was 35 jaar geleden. And it paid exactly double what I was being paid in the clothing industry. So no surprise for people who understand high tech. And to my great surprise, nobody actually cared what anything cost at the time. And in the clothing industry, everything was about cost. So it was my dream job. Then a day came along when somebody was visiting I was just doing these projects in warehouse automation, repair centers with DEC for 4 years with a great team of Dutch people. And there was a visitor from the European headquarters in Geneva who essentially said to me, you seem to know something about software, and we need a European software operations manager in Geneva. Would you like to come and join us? And I think I said, for a bit too long. And he said, we'll double your pay. So that was hard to resist. Moved to Geneva in 1989. Met my Swiss wife 6 months later and decided that I would not move anywhere anymore, and stayed there through Digital's merger with Compaq, Compaq's merger with HP, and then decided my choice to leave as it became obvious that HP was going to be broken up into a whole bunch of other companies. So formally, I left from Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and as Ricardo said, I was head of customer experience for the $4 billion software division. I was commuting at the end twice a month to Sunnyvale, California, which made me the best friend of all of the airlines, but whatever. And I decided to write a few books, essentially to remove all that stuff from my brain and put it on paper and hope that I could forget about it and get on with retirement, and learn to play golf or stuff like that. But after about a year and a half, Jonathan Hawkins and Richard Owen, former CEO of Satmetrix, contacted me, said that they'd founded their own company, their new company, and would I like to come and work with them on a part-time basis in return for some shares in the company, which someday may actually be worth something. And I jumped at it for a simple reason. My definition of what a good day is has always involved learning something, getting some exercise, and doing something for my family. 3-point plan. And this just gave me a great opportunity to learn about things. And so I've treated this as a learning experience, and they're deeply into AI. I promise I'm not trying to sell anything from OCX Cognition today. I'm going to share what I've learned about AI in the world of customer success and customer experience. I absolutely don't claim to know everything. Yes, I've taken formal courses in Python programming and artificial intelligence, and I've learned a lot. I don't know anything. I welcome your questions. I welcome you jumping in and telling me that what I'm saying is just wrong. And I'll treat that as a learning experience. So what I want to talk about today is, to an extent, yes, reasons I think that surveys are dead. I want to give examples of some bad experiences I've had with surveys and some good experiences too. What I see as the main challenges, and then how it is that that AI addresses most of the challenges. So let me start. As I say here, yikes. A bad experience that I had came as a complete surprise to me. I was in the European leadership team of HP at a time when HP had acquired EDS. EDS was a $25 billion outsourcing company. And it took a very deep approach to customer experience measurement with its largest customers. 43 customers represented half of the revenue. So those, the largest customers, one of which was Vodafone, got very special attention. Just for general info, it's no longer covered by a non-disclosure agreement. The largest customer at the time that we acquired EDS was General Motors, and the revenue was $4 billion a year for operating all of their IT infrastructure. So big contracts. So the approach that EDS took was to send a person on site to interview senior executives about how the contracts were going. And just, I had, I suppose complained is maybe too strong a word. I'd had a discussion with Francesco Serafini, who was the head of Europe at the time, of HP, about the way the EDS integration was going. And he just looked at me and he said, and he was my boss, and he just said, okay, you're in charge. And one of the first things that I did was I went over to the Vodafone headquarters in Newbury in the UK. And I had the EDS survey results, and I had Vodafone's own survey, what they did, what's called supplier surveys, where they asked their own internal people what they think of the suppliers. And HP's results with Vodafone weren't very good. And EDS's survey of the Vodafone people was outstanding. So I got into this room in Newbury, and I with one other person from HP, and I just said, look, I think I can shorten this meeting. You love EDS, you don't like HP so much. I'm just going to learn from the approach that EDS has been using with you and copy it. And they looked extremely surprised, big eyes. What? They said, we hate EDS. You're much better than them. I said, but that's not what your executives have said. Here it is. And I gave them the survey report. And they went through and they paged through quite quickly. And I said, your person came over and talked to 4 different executives at Vodafone. None of those 4 have anything whatsoever to do with the contract. They don't know what they're talking about. How the hell did that happen? It didn't take long to find out. One of the consequences of the focus on the survey program was that account teams were measured on the results. And when I say measured on the results, I mean it was serious. Whoever finished first each year, whoever had the highest customer experience score, it wasn't NPS, they got $100,000. Result, cheating was widespread. That was my key experience about making sure you never, ever measure individuals on survey results. Now, I wish every automobile manufacturer on the planet could actually internalize that sort of thing, and they wouldn't have all these meaningless results. Anyway, that was a bad experience. Let me go to a different experience. This is one where I'm not allowed to say who it was, and this was in my software time when we were in 2 business units. We were implementing customer success teams, and elsewhere we were trying something quite similar. And I had a team of people who were each had 3 or 4 of the largest software customers, one of which was a Canadian bank. And the lady, fantastic woman, if ever you want to hire somebody who's Texas-based, Quan Wells is her name, went to the bank headquarters and interviewed, because what was going on was we could see that the project, which was regulatory compliance software that banks had to implement, just wasn't being deployed as quickly as we expected. But they hadn't lodged any complaints about anything at any point. So our attitude was, well, everything is probably fine. But when Quan got there and talked to a few people, especially the project manager during the interview started to cry. What was happening? The project manager was being blamed by their manager for the project being slow. The project manager had gone to their manager and said, look, I just can't implement this HP software. Let's dump it and go for the IBM equivalent. And the manager said, but if you're not competent enough to implement the HP software, why should I believe that you could conceivably implement the IBM one? But it turned out, because we were there with Kwan, me, and a techie, that there actually was a problem with the software that we were totally unaware of. We were able to address it, and the project manager was able to completely implement their project the way that it should be. I mean, I didn't mention, yes, I went over after the initial interview and had the meeting. But what was going on? Yes, it was a positive result, but we didn't learn anything about it from our surveys. We only found out by talking to the person who wasn't complaining. They weren't a detractor, they weren't a promoter, right? They were ashamed of their own inability to implement the project, and they were wrong, right? So this leads me to another piece of personal experience, which is a really important question. And this is another defect of the way we traditionally implement surveys. We assume that the people with the worst results are the ones who are going to leave. And particularly in B2B. In B2B, where there are large annual contracts, that just turns out not to be the case. Now, I refer to this, and I know some of you will have seen this before, so I'm going to cover it really briefly. I refer to this as couples therapy, but the couples can be couples that you know or that you are part of, or couples which are the marriage between a business and their customers. So there are great similarities. You all know people, happy couples, as I call them. They're people who've been together, and yes, I know I'm showing it as a man and a woman, but it doesn't matter what the nature of the couple is. They're very happy together. They stay together, and they are references for all of us. Okay, I'm sure you recognize either yourselves or people you know in that category. There are also couples that seem to fight a lot, but there are subsets of those couples who seem to fight a lot, but then you say, they've been fighting a lot for the last 10 years, but they're still together. What's going on here? And what's going on is that they're communicating. What happens particularly in B2B is if you're communicating with people who are in the detractor category or giving you the lowest OSAT scores or whatever it is, this is where you find out that you've got some unhappy people. Maybe you've got a complaints management system. And what a former CEO of HP, Meg Whitman, used to say to us was, run to the fire. And that was a message of, when you see people who are complaining, run to it, fix it, make sure that they stay with us. Accept that maybe there won't be much margin left, but we've got to keep the unhappy people. And we were very good at that, right? So guess what? The detractors stayed. The problem turned out to be, and I'm not covering the data on this today, just accept that this is extremely scientific, large volumes of data for where we first saw it for one particular business that I'm not allowed to name. I call this the deadly zone of mutual indifference. I've been divorced once. I've got into the deadly zone of mutual indifference without realizing it. This is where one person in the couple arrives home, the other person is already there. The person arriving home says, oh, he or she is not saying anything. Everything must be fine, right? But it's not. Just like the Canadian bank, the people who leave you very often in B2B and in businesses that are dependent on annual contracts, they're people who don't say anything and they just don't care. Then the sales person shows up 3 months before the contract is due to be renewed, and you find out that the customer has just signed with a competitor. It's the same as you get home one day and you discover that the significant other in your life, well, somebody else has been communicating with them and they're gone, right? So this is another really significant defect of the traditional survey-based approach and metric system, whether it be CSAT, wallet allocation, whatever, any of these things. It's the assumption that the unhappiest people are the ones who leave, and that's just not correct in a lot of cases. In the 1HP business, I'm not allowed name, we had a drop in NPS, and the double-blind brand level customer research was done extremely well, the competitive loyalty research by different companies over the years, Satmetrics, Ipsos, Harris, and so on. And it was a very good predictor of revenue trends relative to competition. Because of course, you can have an increasing satisfaction score in a declining industry and your revenue can still go down, right? And you can have a declining SAT score in a strong growth industry and have your revenue still go up. It's relative to competition is the important part. But what happened in this particular business was, and had an NPS decline with the usual gap that should be expected. There was an average revenue decline over a 2-year period, but it was excited people who came and talked to me on a Valentine's Day about it that made me think about this in terms of the couples metaphor that I just went through, which was, it was the detractors were staying with us, but at much lower margins. The promoters were staying with us. It was the passives who were leaving. And it was a surprise constantly because the salespeople's reaction was always, oh, but they didn't say anything, right? So that is where I am about the defects that I've seen from some personal experience. Now, the way McKinsey did a paper, I didn't put the reference to it on the slide, I'll deal with that later. This was about 2 years ago, and it was just their own survey of customer experience leaders. And there were a whole bunch of points covered, but basically, customer experience leaders, only a tiny fraction of them believed that their organizations could take action on issues in real time, mainly for obvious reasons, which is they only detected the issues in a rearview mirror rather than looking forward or in real time. And very few CX leaders who were in charge of the survey processes believed that surveys and the survey process allowed them to get to the root cause of performance issues. Now, I've been a CX leader for a long time, and I agree with these statements. I did not agree with them for, let's say, if I had seen those statements 15 or 20 years ago, I wouldn't have agreed. I would have thought it was wrong. Now I realized it's correct. And they go on to say, why would you use a survey to ask customers about experiences when the data about the interactions can be used instead? Now, this is where we're leaping over into the world of AI, right? So NPS and any one of the survey-based metric systems, it's the right idea, but it's limited by the, let's call it the obsolete technology, meaning survey technology. We want to learn about every customer, every reseller, distributors. We don't get that. We want really accurate results from the people we survey. We don't get that either because there are various factors that mean the samples are almost all biased. The stuff isn't. Thank you, Sudha, for your remark. The stuff isn't up to date. Very often, you're dealing with old data. The people selling at the time, the people selling the double-blind competitive research studies took 2 to 3 months between doing the studies and being able to report it out completely. Even that was defective in terms of taking quick actions. You don't get deep operational root cause, meaning by this, I mean the language that comes out of it isn't useful in terms of talking to the teams in charge of things. You know, oh, we're not happy with the product itself. Okay, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that if it's software that you're doing requests for enhancements and you're not getting the enhancements, what does it mean? It's expressed in a way that the teams involved can think that someone else is responsible and can just be in total denial if that's what they want. There's linkage to financial outcomes that are not as strong as you would like. Yes, they're at an overall macro level, they're there, but you're not getting the linkage at the level of each individual customer the way that you should. This whole organizational engagement, the frequency with which you're reporting doesn't match the financial and operational reporting of the company. Unless you're really fortunate, you're not doing the monthly, weekly, or quarterly reporting that the rest are. So you get viewed as being an occasionally entertaining person, but I'm not sure whether I should really listen to you. And it's not predictive, right? So there is another big issue from a customer perspective with surveys. As you all know, survey response rates have been gradually going down for years. I thought this was an issue, and I did an experiment back in 2016, and I repeated it later. What I did in 2016 was I said, fine, I will take the next 100 surveys that I am sent. Why? To find out whether any of the people sending me surveys will come back to me afterwards and tell me what they learned and what they're going to do with the results. And of the 100, one did. And that was actually the company that I wrote about at some point about having the worst survey that I had ever seen. And that was British Airways surveys that they did for Executive Club Gold members. I thought it was just the worst survey I'd ever seen, but they were the only people who wrote back saying what they'd learned and what was going to be done with it. Anyway, if airline surveys, if an airline writes to you saying, I want to write to you about your flight to ABC 123. And then the first question is, was that flight on time? My God, don't you already know whether your own flight was on time? Why are you asking me? Anyway, I repeated the exercise 2-3 years ago, and none of the 100 wrote back saying what they'd learned. So that's a big defect. Anyway, operations. I've talked about operations. Operations don't directly determine the financial results, right? Operations determine the experiences customers have. The experiences they have determine the attitudes that they have towards you, and then the attitude they have towards you drives their, let's call it the financial outcomes, drives their loyalty, drives their emotional reaction to buy more as well. Every single business has a customer life cycle. I'm doing a relatively simple one here. Yes, this is a software and SaaS software example, but you've all got your own examples. I'm sure that you can relate to this. You've got a team that's in charge of buying it, of the buying process, the customer's buying process. Team that's in charge of building something. In this case, I'm picking an example with a professional services team. You've got onboarding processes for software, the product team, support team, feedback. What we have traditionally is each of these people have their own operational metrics for things, and they have their own status. And you can have different status colors by stage in the life cycle. One of the big challenges that you've got in the way that businesses have been operating operationally is that, yes, those statuses can be known by stage, but there isn't an overall view. Each team has their own metrics, their own KPIs, key performance indicators, and there is no agreement on which are the top 3, let's say, most important things. The essence of business strategy is to concentrate your resources on just the few top things that really matter the most. So if you don't have agreement on that, you can't implement an effective business strategy. So this is where AI and machine learning comes into effect. I'm not going to give you detailed training in machine learning. The way that it works is you take that subset of the population for which you've got high quality survey data, ideally overall brand level surveys. Do not use your support survey as the basis for this. And you match that survey data against the operational data and trends for all of the customers who have taken that survey. That gives you your AI, what's known as the training model. And then you apply, then from that model, you learn which are the data points. If you're a stats person, you'll recognize this as essentially massive multiple regression. You're determining which are the few things that seem to be the biggest, the strongest drivers of whether it be your NPS score, or the financial results, meaning the net customer retention, which is how much money they keep spending on what they've already got, plus how much money they spend on new things. Then you apply that AI model to all of the customers. Yes, there's a coverage gap because the people, you're not covering brand image issues, right? So like I have a Tesla. I really like my Tesla. I strongly dislike Elon Musk. Any survey about my Tesla doesn't cover anything about Elon Musk.
I think we all agree with you.
Elon is listening.
I hope not.
And I mean, seriously, the issue, if there was a car that was like a Tesla Model 3 that wasn't a Tesla and it was approximately the same price, I would jump. In the meanwhile, I've had the Tesla for 4 years and I've done over 60,000 kilometers with it, and I really like the car, but the brand image matters. Anyway, what AI is using, when I talk about operational data, this is the data from your own IT systems. And it's figuring out how to put the puzzle pieces of that data in together into a coherent picture. And that coherent picture, once you've established it, it's for each and every individual customer as well as collectively. But is that future, from your perspective, is it going to be a horrible stormy road leading to nowhere, or is it bright and sunny? And that's what it is. And yes, you can actually, if you're an extremely good Excel hack, you can do one-time extracts of all of the from your different IT systems and do multiple regression exercise yourself that way as a one-time exercise. I do have to inject another story in this just to reinforce the point of the importance of the operational data. The first time I was ever involved in a survey of any kind was with the Wrangler Jeans Company. I was in Paris at the time. We were in the distribution center there, and I was the quality and engineering manager for France, the Benelux, and Italy. And yes, I speak all of those languages. I speak French at home, if that's relevant to anyone. I decided that because we were implementing Stonewash and I was making changes in the logistics stuff, that I wanted to go into Paris and ask a bunch of the stores that were most important to us what they thought about what we were doing. My boss's boss, a corporate person in Greensboro, North Carolina, was quite opposed to my doing this, saying, well, we've already been asking people. We already know that they are very happy with the quality of the stitching and how well the rivets hold together in the jeans. And we ask them about whether they're happy with how we match the patterns on the pockets of the shirts with the patterns on the shirt fronts and so on. And you're not going to bring anything new to this. Don't bother. But hey, I was an apprenti français at the time, and as you know, we apprentice French people, we don't pay any attention to authority. We just go out and do whatever we want. So I went and did this with the help of a salesperson. And guess what happened? The number one thing that that these shop owners wanted wasn't on the corporate list at all. And what it was, to summary, it was, if you tell us you're going to deliver on Thursday morning, you must deliver us on Thursday morning, because we'll have organized people to come over from another one of our stores, or we'll have organized family members to come in, unload all of the cartons, put all of the stuffs in the shelves for the weekend. I say, oh, but isn't delivery accuracy more important? No, we don't care what you deliver as long as we got something to sell on the weekend. If you sent us the wrong stuff, we'll send it back to you on Monday if we've not been able to sell it. You have to deliver on time. My point here is what mattered wasn't covered in the surveys that were being done, but it was there in the operational data. We knew how many people we were delivering exactly as scheduled and how many we weren't. And our concern was two Spanish jeans brands at the time, Lois Jeans and Jesus Jeans. Boy, if you ever want a politically incorrect poster, go and look for the Jesus Jeans posters at the time. And we were trying to prevent them getting market share. Anyway, the answer was in the data. So what AI is using is the data from each of the team's IT systems and working out the weight of each of the things for a bunch of other factors. Like, you can choose what they are. So this was propensity to renew, meaning the probability that someone will renew their contracts. Once again, this is for a software perspective on life, and it turned out that the willingness of people to renew was driven for a third approximately by the onboarding process and getting used to new software, followed by product related things, the product itself, right? So we know that, hey, guess what? Propensity to renew, the whole area of support experience, yes, it was number 3 on the list. Didn't matter very much. Professional services didn't matter as much. Where did we need to invest? It was in the onboarding process, doing it better. Remember that surveys also provide you an incomplete picture if you're going to do this prediction. Here you've got the example of somebody doing 6%. Yes, Lynn. Lynn, hey, good to see you virtually. Yes, I agree, and I'm sure. Well, mind your service calls first. I'll give you maybe a minor surprise on this in a moment. So, completing the picture with AI, this is also quite usual that you'll find that the people that detractors and passers are underrepresented in survey results. So and this is a real life example of a company that I'm not allowed to name. 663 accounts were covered by the surveys that represented at the time, 18% of the revenue, so it was larger people. But hey, once we got the operational data covered, it was all accounts, 11,000, and all of the revenue was covered. Yes, the NPS went down, but we were able to understand what affected that company in detail. The surprise, Lynn, that I was going to mention there is that came up there, and it came up in some other companies as well. It's surprising how often the main concerning data trends are in Salesforce, not in the support systems. It can be as simple as, when does the salesperson call to renew a contract? If it's 6 months in advance, 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, whatever, the amount of contact the salesperson has with the customer. Have the customer and the salesperson fallen into the deadly zone of mutual indifference, right? You can also have it with AI as frequently as you want. That means you can, if you want it, if your company reports weekly, you can do weekly reporting because you'll always have new operational data, right? You'll also get over the risk of, if you've done your survey in August, it's going to be really negative, and maybe you think that's the status all the time, but maybe it isn't. Maybe there's just something going on then. Now, I'm getting to wrapping up here. So what we're talking about, and this is a drill down into that particular software company's product thing. So what was going on from a product perspective? The biggest predictors of NPS and the overall experience metrics from a product perspective, what turned out to be whether we were delivering on the requests for enhancements, well, whether that company was delivering on the requests for enhancements, the impact that those had measured operationally and the impact in use. So that allowed prediction. And of course, once you've got that prediction and you see changes in the NPS number or any of the overall top level metrics you want, it becomes easy to do the reverse, which is you are able to attribute, dig into the change and attribute it to the different drivers and so on. So that may sound reasonably easy. The biggest challenge that I've been seeing has been with the way customer experience, and to a lesser extent customer success teams that tend to have bigger budgets, so they've been under a lot of pressure. Customer experience teams tend to not have any significant budget, so it's been very hard for them to get into the AI world. It's certainly possible if you're spending a lot of money with third-party vendors on surveys to reduce that, if not eliminate it, and cover the costs of AI. But overall, you've got to remember that if you're paying, Qualtrics, Medallia, whoever, a bunch of money to get information on a fraction of your customers, hey, if you could actually get decent information on 100% of your customers at individual level, that shouldn't be too difficult a discussion to have. So, yes, dead may be overstating the case, because as I mentioned, you still even need surveys for occasional calibration. You still need them to be able to capture the brand image issues. Tesla has never sent me a survey in which they asked my opinion about Elon Musk, but hey, I think they would be afraid to report out on that to their leadership. Other teams, especially marketing is a great example of a team that has done amazing work to automate things. When you think of where marketing was 10, 15 years ago to all of the Google Analytics reports and click-through rate reports and things that you're seeing in the world of e-commerce, plenty of other functions and teams have automated their processes. Customer experience hasn't. It's time to get to it. The key question, of course, is who has the budget? So so that's all I want to say for today. Another picture of Geneva with a bit of la bise, the wind that comes in from the north, blowing the jet d'eau, the Geneva fountain, to one side, just to close off. So willing to answer any and all questions. You can take
I have a question for you. Thank you so much, Maurice. It was a great explanation. I got here from Sweden, from Helen, that is watching there with her university class. They are very impressed with your presentation. I have a question for you about what do you expect to see in as AI progress, yes, with CDPs, data mining, real-time data itself, yes. and conversational style surveys. Where do you think that we are going right now to not have those kinds of boring surveys that you are having? What will be your take on that, and what you see happening now as you are
Well,
progressing?
CDPs
Sorry
are
about my question.
sure. I mean, CDPs are fantastic as a way of getting of centralizing the data that you need to do this. Companies are having quite a lot of challenges implementing CDPs, but sometimes it can just be willingness of people to have all the data centralized and so on. But yes, CDPs are important to it. There are two stages to implementing. Assuming you get beyond the Excel-based one-time multiple regression exercise, you can do the data without needing APIs and active data mining at the frequency with which you're willing to do data extracts. Clearly, if the data in all of your operational systems is garbage, you've got a whole series of other problems, right? But if you decide, fine, I want to be able to go through all of this stuff once a month, you can just do the extract exercise once a month. What we're seeing is that it takes people from having nothing to have their first results based on high quality one-time extracts. It takes a maximum of 3 months to get there. Getting from there to true real-time, meaning involves having an appropriate API that's linking yourself to those systems, and then sticking that extract into the Amazon data warehouse that you're using to store it all before applying the AI software to it. And for university student group, I would say, and no, I don't speak Swedish other than anything I learned from what we can pronounce correctly as IKEA and not IKEA. So I learned my Swedish from reading signs in IKEA. The whole question of build versus buy, it's complicated to get started. But university places are a great place to be able to do that. I see Alvaro asking what kind of bias will you have in the CX AI models. I would say there are. I'll give you the biggest example of bias. And Lynn Hunsaker, you may or may not like this, but I'm sure you've seen this one in practice. An example of where bias comes in is if your source data is biased. And the most common areas of source data that are biased are actually transactional survey data. And the ways that people will cheat support survey collection, data collection, if they're measured on it, are just alarming. Should I name names? No, I won't. I'll just say in a company I worked for, the lady VP of support found at one point that a number of people were faking the survey process by having the surveys sent to their own email addresses and filling them out themselves. And then the customer.
But which kind of company will do something like that? That's kind of terrible.
Well, the thing is, as I talked about it in different support communities, I got the feeling I was seeing people rushing off to erase their fake email addresses. But the ways that you can do this, that's the most commonly biased stuff. You also see people, if people are strongly measured on an individual thing, I agree, Lynn, transaction survey data is highly biased. I mean, shipping data, I did see at one point and I saw this first in Wrangler, but then I saw it in digital as well. When pressure came on delivery turnaround times, the people in charge of warehouse delivery changed the metric so that it counted as delivered when it was put into the trucks, even if the truck was going to stay over the weekend and only leave on Monday. So yes, you can have garbage data in it. And that does introduce bias. Some of the bias is common sense, some will come as surprises. I can't think of a bias that shows up in a Salesforce system at the moment. People might miss out on recording some of their customer, their activity. So maybe some of the salespeople underreport what they're doing. I don't think over-reporting is very common. Just to
there is another observation here from Arto.
Yeah. So yes, Arto. Yes, I agree. I mean, that was what was in the Swedish university question. Yeah, customer data platform. So yes, it's good, and the question. So yes, if it's touching, if it's everything that's conceivably customer touching, you're great, and it's probably a great place to get started. There are easy laugh tests, like if it's got everything except the Salesforce data. I guarantee, based on what I'm seeing so far in real life situations, that you're going to miss stuff if you don't have the stuff on what's going on with the salespeople or the professional services project implementers. Data mining service richer than yeah, yes, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Lynn. So
I have another one.
Anshuman, while customer service perceived as a cost center, yes. The catch is, I guess, the sanity check, Anshuman, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, would be, has your company outsourced the customer service? Because if they've outsourced it, the path back from it being perceived as a cost, it's really impossible. Because what happens is every 2 to 5 years, the procurement people will go back and say, okay, we've been paying X per call or per event. Now we want to achieve a 20% reduction in X. And that's far more important than that. If you're still operating the contact center stuff, including the chat, including everything yourselves, you have some hope of reversing that. But,
we are approaching the end, so I want to just show some other observations that people add here, and I'm really sorry about the time.
Agreed, Sudha.
So here's Sudha surveys. Yes, we have what's GDPR. Hey. Oh, that's Vodafone. An important point.
Vodafone. Oh, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. So yes, you have to be certain, and this got personal experience with this, to be certain that you don't have customer personal data being accidentally included in what you're recording. So the one-time extracts, yes, it's fine to have the customer's ID number and so on, but you should try not to be doing things with the names that people have not agreed to explicitly in advance and so on. So it's absolutely there, and it's doable.
The people in the university are thank you for the.
Yes, thank you, Helen, and that's a very good Swedish name, Rigamonti. Yes.
Yeah. Very Italian, yes.
Yes.
Helen is the head of the educational program of TCX. So I would like to ask a question just to wrap up. Do you think that we are going to get in a position with AI progressing so fast now that we are not going to need anymore to answer, and they can get our feedback, let's say, in a real-time model that you you can fill that instead of you have already data text analysis, yes, text sentiment. You
Absolutely.
have so many different things together that if
correct.
you build
Yeah, I meant to mention NLP and so on. I do think it has an important role in the brand level surveys and capturing some of these emotional things. You know, yes, in Tesla's survey, I put in, yes, I like my car and I don't like Elon Musk. I put that in the text answers. So yeah, so yes, that matters. I realize we've got to wrap up, so I'm preventing myself speaking at length here.
No, we can talk. We can talk. We have more 3 minutes. It's just a matter of just preparing to wrap up. That's the idea. That's the reason why.
Okay, so yeah, I've lost track here. So I believe that we can dump. I think transactional. Once you've got a decent AI system in place, you can dump the transactional survey stuff right away. I think you can because you're not going to learn anything important. I think you still need the overall brand level things for maybe an annual recalibration, making certain that some new sentiment thing doesn't pop up in your natural language programming analysis, and that you're not finding out that something that you didn't think was important is bubbling up, that you need to recalibrate your AI model. Yes, correct. And the thing, Leonardo, with the chat, I mean, there are companies that do emotional analysis of calls, which I find a really interesting subject. I've not dug into it in any detail, but the types of emotions that are being expressed by people and the predictive value of those and whether they're going to stay. But, calls and chat, you hope that in a good company with good products and services, that only a tiny fraction of the people are actually going to need the calls and the chat, right? And it's how do you capture the data and the information that you need about predicting loyalty and future revenue from all of the people who never use the contact center.
Very interesting topic. I think you have to bring you again here to discuss further, because we did not spoke yet about the OCX solution, but I think the people got to the point and where we are going, and that's the important part. Yes.
I promised not to try to sell anything, Ricardo. So hey.
No, it's no problem. Maurice, do you have any other thing or any advice to tell the people here before we wrap up, and how the people can find you?
Sure. I mean, it's easy to find me on LinkedIn, and I think, Ricardo, you'll make that PDF slide deck there. My email address is on that. The phone number isn't, but that's easy enough. You can reach out to me that way. Please be clear. I consider, even after 5 years in this domain, I consider myself a beginner. I'm constantly learning. I claim to have opinions and views. I do not claim that they're all correct, right? I'm a scientist. I accept new input. I want fact-based counter arguments, and I'll change my perspective, and I'll change what I'm saying. I'm learning. I love learning. Right.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. Oh, wait a second. We have more two observations here, and then I let you go, I promise you. Amazing okay. Science. Thank you. I've already saying that. And Suda is saying great section. Nice. Everybody like it. I like it as well. I think it was very good. Thank you so much for your time. Maurice, have a lovely week for everyone and for you, wherever you are. We are here all the times, and it's coming much more, many other sessions we are going to announce soon. Take care and have a lovely week, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.